Good morning, everybody, and welcome to yet another webinar. I'm up today. My name is Patrick Waker, Support Services Director at Tracware, and it's my pleasure and privilege today to take you through some of the aircraft maintenance features, the Part 145 functionality specific to the aircraft side of the business in Aerotrac. So once again, many thanks for joining us. As ever, we're going to be recording this session. If you would like to kind of remain anonymous or whatever, but just part of the general process and protocol anyway, we'd be grateful if you could please mute your microphone, turn off your video feed. And if you need to ask any questions at any point, you're more than welcome to. But please, if you would do that via the chat function in Teams, we'd be very grateful. So, without further ado, we're going to switch the recording on in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so as I say, thanks everybody for joining today. So the aim of today's session basically is just to give you an overview of the various different functions in Aerotrac related to the management of aircraft maintenance activity within Aerotrac. So, Aerotrac's got a variety of features for managing the Part 145 maintenance activities. Obviously, there's a whole tranche of functionality for the workshop side, but obviously, clearly, there's something very specific for the aircraft side as well. Now, we've been doing that really since about 2002, mainly via the method of hangar projects. And basically, the idea of the hangar projects is you can accomplish maintenance inputs on aircraft, demonstrating accountability and control. The software works whether the aircraft maintenance organisation is managing the continuing airworthiness of the aircraft, or it's just simply acting as a jobbing shop, if you like, for the purposes of carrying out the maintenance inputs. Hangar projects are obviously designed to cover all the regulatory requirements, as I say, demonstrating accountability and control. But they also integrate with everything else within Aerotrac, so all the commercial, financial, and inventory related functions. So the work that carried out obviously is dictated by the camo, be that in-house or an external department. And actually, in the early versions of Aerotrac, until probably in fact fairly recently, really, there wasn't a great distinction really between the camo and the Part 145 functionality in Aerotrac. But since 2019, Aerotrac has allowed the camo and the Part 145 to work far more independently, if you like, of each other within Aerotrac. So, we'll go through some of those features today. So the plan really is to do a rapid run through the process from start to finish of the Part 145 functions, but in two specific scenarios. One, where the Part 145 receives a maintenance instruction from the in-house camo, and the other where the Part 145 is acting completely independently and is receiving instructions from an external camo. Okay, so the primary things we're going to cover is some basic setups. We're going to go through MRO quotations, which I know is a kind of a commercial thing, but what I'd like to do is show you how that kind of impacts on the 145 functionality. Obviously going through hangar projects, the inspection workbench, which obviously is one of the key areas in terms of updating the job. Project updates, which effectively is the tech record sign-off from a Part 145 point of view. Production of a CRS. And also we'll have a quick look at the AWI, if we get time, just to show you some of the latest features that we're working on for the 145 side of the business. In the new web-based features that we're currently developing at the moment. So with no further ado, I shall exit from here and scoot off to good old Aerotrac. So Aerotrac and the Part 145, basically it's the same thing every time, which is actually all the processes start basically with part configuration and part masters. So part masters are obviously controlling what you can and can't do within Aerotrac. And a very simple example, if you type the part number correctly, would be setting up a part master specifically for the aircraft. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on this, other than the fact that obviously if it's an aircraft, it would need to be serialized. From a technical perspective, if obviously you're going to put it or create projects for it, you'll need to flag it as being an in-house reworkable part. Obviously, if you've got the quality management, capability management stuff switched on, you'll get taken through a whole tranche of approvals to get that sorted. One of the other key things as well is from an aircraft airframe part master's point of view, you need to tick that box there. And by ticking that, effectively, you can then set up hangar projects. Unless you've got that box ticked, you won't be able to create hangar projects for that particular part. One of the other things on the part master, obviously, it's lifed. So even it's just like in this case, it's a lifed aircraft, but there's, other than the inspections on it, there's nothing actually specific against the airframe that says, oh, well, it needs to be overhauled at so many hours or whatever. Obviously, that's all managed through a maintenance program. But one of the other things, obviously, it does is it goes and it uses all the functionality in Aerotrac from a camo perspective to go and drag in and show you all the tasks and inspections and publications and whatever that are applicable to that aircraft type based on its product group, which is the other key thing that basically drives the functionality of Aerotrac, both from a Part M perspective, but also from a Part 145. So the product group is a key part of that as well. So obviously part masters need to be set up first, and then to actually create a job for an aircraft, whether it's a 145 only aircraft or it's one of the managed ones, that's sort of the starting process for that in the administrative setup is found in aircraft management under fleet details. And in here is a place where basically we have to set up the aircraft and effectively describe how we're controlling it. So in this instance, this is a managed aircraft as well as us doing the maintenance work on it, but it can be basically either or. So clearly, if you don't have it, if you're a 145 jobbing shop and you don't have any camo capability, it's quite feasible for you just not even to have the ability to flag it as a managed aircraft, because the aircraft management features wouldn't even necessarily be switched on. So yeah, and from a maintenance point of view, probably the key thing here really is flagging it up as to what maintenance type the aircraft is controlled under. That basically then drives the paperwork side of things from an Aerotrac perspective. And probably the other key area in terms of the setup there is probably down in the quality setup, where basically we define what we call the aircraft maintenance types. So here, we're basically defining, really, this is just about populating documentation, really. So this is the CRS statement that effectively is appearing either on the task card, on the CRS itself, on a logbook, or on independent inspections. And obviously, you can set up the wording as required for each of the different airworthiness releases. So yeah, so I mean they're kind of some of the basic setups. There's probably one other one which I'll go over a little bit later, which is all to do with the actual task card setup side of things. But yeah, so just some kind of basic setups there in terms of how you get going. I don't know if anybody who's attending today was at the webinar last week where we were talking about maintenance instructions. But obviously, Aerotrac within its aircraft management section here has the ability for the camo to be able to basically create maintenance instructions, which they can send either in-house or they can push outside. So in this case, we've created a maintenance instruction last week for a number of tasks, nothing massively complicated. But what I wanted to show you is how this can be used, if you like, from a 145 perspective. So at its most basic, we can simply pull that maintenance instruction straight into a hangar project. But what I'm also going to just take you through is the MRO quotation function. And as I say, although this is kind of there's a commercial element to this, it does kind of impact on the 145. And even if you're not actually providing quotes to the customer, there are certain benefits, if you like, to using the MRO quotations, assuming it's a module that you have switched on. So if I go into MRO quotations here, for argument's sake, we might put a maintenance instruction together, and what we're going to do is just quote the customer to let them know what the cost of that is going to be. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to add a quote. I'm going to select that it's for a managed aircraft, click OK, pick my aircraft. And then what Aerotrac does from an MRO quote point of view is it allows you to import the maintenance instruction directly into the MRO quote. So by selecting that, it'll automatically flag up all the tasks. So we've got the whole of the phased 12 inspection. So rather than detailing each and every single op, it just groups everything together, picks up the hours off of all the various different cards and says, yeah, there we go. That's how many hours it's going to be, and therefore that's what the cost is going to be. If there are any associated materials with any of the task cards you selected, then the parts are automatically included in the parts list here. So basically, it helps you build a detailed quote. Probably the main advantage to this from a commercial perspective is it allows you basically to have an agreed fixed price for a known scope of work for the job. And the advantage of that is that once you've generated the project, you can turn this MRO quote into an estimate. And effectively, it then just becomes, well, that bit's known. It's a fixed quote and a fixed price for that. So the estimate is exactly the same as the MRO quote. And then really, it's just about how you manage all the emergent work, all the non-routine defects that are added to it, and add them into the estimates individually. So it sort of helps define the process a little bit by using the MRO quotation function. So if I was to save that, you'll see it will create an MRO quote. One of the other things that it will allow you to do, and I think this is going to be increasingly useful as we develop and push into the web-based world, is that once you've created an MRO quotation, we can flag it as complete. So it's gone off to the customer. Customer comes back, says, yes, they're very happy with that. In which case, what you can then do is convert that MRO quote to a planned arrival. It's a feature it's not hugely used. It's far more user-friendly and far more helpful and useful with the new AWI features, which I'll hopefully show you at the end. But yeah, the idea here is that you can actually take that and convert that into a planned arrival. So we're saying that this is going to come in. There's a separate thing in the status board that shows all the planned arrivals, so you can kind of see all the incoming work in there. When it pitches up, excuse me, we seem to be giving ourselves plenty of time to to do the work. 287 days is how long we're planning to take to do the task. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from, but yeah, if I go in and just say, yeah, the aircraft's here, I can confirm the arrival. So yeah, it is going to come in. Oh, the aircraft is now pitched up, so it's outside the hangar door. So I can flag up and say that the unit has arrived. And at that point, actually, what it'll say is, do you wish to create a new project for this arrival? So I'm just going to go yes. And Aerotrac then generates the project. Now you'll notice that what it actually does is it pulls in the maintenance instruction at the same time. So I'm going to also flag now that the aircraft is now out of service because it's in here. We're just putting it into the hangar now. And I'm just going to save that. And that's going to generate my project. It's just confirming that we're going to take it out of service. So yes, we are. And there we go. So we've now got an aircraft basically which is in the hangar, and we're pretty much ready to go. So this is the commercial kickoff side of the process. So that's sort of fairly common in all the projects in Aerotrac. They're sort of two sides of it, if you like. You've got the main header information in here, where you can see the project, you can see the history of all the other projects that have ever been raised, along with any sub-projects that might be linked to this project as we go forward, all the invoicing information. There's a hold capability, so yeah, I mean, if you need to put the project on and off of hold, I guess that's probably more prevalently used in the workshop side of things, really. But yeah, if for whatever reason you need to put a hold on to the project, and basically that will stop people booking time, booking materials. It can hide all the material demands so that no one's buying anything or allocating anything, because it literally just hides everything from view while the project is on hold. And then there's a bunch of other tabs, but I'll come back to those in a little while once we've got some meaningful data into the project. So anyway, we've created the main header information. Over here, we've got a link through to the project technical details, which obviously is just actually sort of further down in the main menu. But if I click into here, and obviously what we'll see as we go into the project technical details, if I edit the project, I can go in and I can say who it is who's leading it. So it's going to be Bernard who's leading it. We're going to create a CRS for it as a release certificate. In terms of the life details, I've probably got the tech logs. The hours in Aerotrac may or may not be up to date. So at the moment it's saying that it's 246, and the sector record page for that may or may not match. So I can at this stage go in, and that's one of the changes, if you like, in previous iterations of the software. To really be able to do anything, you had to make sure that all the hours were fully up to date on the aircraft. That's no longer the case. So the 145 can simply manually add in whatever the current tech log page is and whatever the hours and cycles are at this particular point in time. And from a scheduled maintenance point of view, it's sucked in all the tasks basically from the maintenance instruction. So these are all the tasks that we're incorporating as part of the group's inspection, along with a couple of additional task codes to boot. So if I save that and then simply generate the route, and then obviously that creates individual op numbers, which then basically they're individual trackers, if you like, for each of the various maintenance tasks that you're carrying out. So you can book your materials against it. Obviously, you can book time against it. Costs from invoices can be linked to it. So they become very specific in terms of the tracking and obviously the sign-off as well. So anything that obviously is allocated an op number, basically as part of the technical completion of the project, yeah, they all need to be signed off for you to be able to release the aircraft back into service. So in this case, it's a pretty simplistic project. There's scheduled maintenance. I've not done any component changes, and obviously we don't have any defects as such yet. But yes, so that's as a kind of a basic kickoff. One other thing, and just as a slight adjunct to this, probably what I would do here is very much now we're recommending as a process that once you've created the MRO quote and the MRO quote has been turned into a project, that you go back before you actually start turning any spanners, booking hours and stuff like that. This is the point at which, right at the beginning of the project, the first thing we recommend you do is you go in and actually generate an estimate. So basically the estimate then just becomes a direct copy of the MRO quote. And as I say, all you're then doing is simply adding any unscheduled defects to the estimate as the project goes ahead. I won't really concentrate on the estimate any further than that, but just as part of the process, if you like, I think this is something that was probably worth mentioning, if you like. So we've now got an estimate that basically mimics whatever it was that the MROQ was saying, the MRO quote was saying. As I say, all we need to do now is just simply add all the unscheduled defects to it as we go along. Right, okay. So, excuse me. MRO quotes, we've done with those. Yes, if I go back to the project technical details for the project that I just created. As I say, we've got the life details, scheduled maintenance. There's no component changes in this particular instance. But obviously, once the job has kind of been released, typically as you generate the route, that effectively releases it in. If you've got the AWI functionality, which has got some of the planning capabilities in it, you'll see we've got a start hangar activity. So actually the clock only starts ticking at the point at which you say, right, we're doing stuff. And you can actually hit a button that then sets it and says, right, so yeah, we're working on this aircraft now. Probably one of the main things, obviously, is then to print the pack. So if we go into this this print pack, obviously the idea is that from here you can just hit print package and literally just print off all the information that's relevant. So we have a series of default cards which are kind of set up, but probably the best thing to do before you hit the print pack is just go in and select forms. And basically what that will do is that will make sure that everything is ticked where there is actually something you know, in relation to that. So if there are no modifications and there are no component changes, then there's no reason as such for those cards to be ticked. If I save that, and obviously if I preview the cards, we can see the grouped inspections here. So essentially this is a kind of typical task card from an Aerotrac perspective, certainly on the larger aircraft, where you've got a kind of a single task card per op with a barcode at the top for the time booking. Obviously, you've got all the aircraft details and the project number, what the task card is. So this is obviously the first task within a phase 12 inspection. What is it? Well, this is the wing main box tank unit wiring and wiring connections inspection, along with the maintenance program, obviously that relates to. And then down here, obviously, is the detail of the task. Now, obviously, that can be as detailed as you want it to be, or as simplistic as you need it to be. And actually, I'll show you something in relation to that a little bit further in the session, in relation to how, from a 145 perspective, you do have the ability to be able to control the content of the card without necessarily affecting any of the airworthiness side of things from a CAM perspective. So I'll show you that shortly. But there's our work pack. Obviously, there's an index, there's a routing, which is obviously kind of all the individual task cards, excuse me, all broken out, for you to be able to flag them all as the cards are received back in. Obviously, it's just a tally sheet. The other thing as well, I guess a bit further down, not sure there's a huge amount in here, but we've got the panel removal and refit sheet. So it'll flag up. So obviously, if the panels are referenced on the task card, they'll automatically appear in here. If they're referenced on more than one task card, which has been pulled into the inspection, it will group all those tasks together against that panel. So that basically you're not going to replace the panel before you've finished all the tasks that are linked to it. So yeah, there's the print pack option. Obviously, there's an option there to reference the relevant aircraft maintenance manual. So yeah, that's the print process package section. So we'll exit out of there. Obviously, you can preview those tasks as well individually from in here. So if you want to preview oh, it's just this task card has not been generated. Okay, all ops will be. We probably don't necessarily want to do that, but never mind. Okay, I was just hoping to print the one single card, but actually it's going to print the whole inspection again. But there we go. Yeah. So right. I'm actually just going to change. So there's a lot of information on here, which is really there for the benefit of the 145 from a management perspective. But it's probably better actually if I just change to a project that I completed and closed some time ago, which is this project here, which was a big old project. So we can see it's the same header, life details as we've already been talking about. Obviously, I've closed this out now and said, yeah, that was the sector record page in which this job was closed. Those are the hours and landings for the aircraft at that particular point in time. These are all the scheduled maintenance tasks, and you can see actually that they've all been updated and they're all flagged as action. So actually this project has been tech records completed. But we can see all the component changes. We can view basically all the changes that were related to that, including all the kind of the sign-offs of who did what in relation to it, which is all pulling in from the project up screen, which will update screen, which we'll look at in a minute. We've got all the unscheduled maintenance. Oh, sorry, it just seems to have frozen up on me. Beg your pardon. Hello? Hi, sorry guys, I don't know what's happened here. My Aerotrac just seems to have frozen completely. I don't know what's happened. It has completely frozen. That's never happened to me before. I'll just go into the admin side for a second to just see if that's working. Yeah, that's okay. I don't know what's going on. Go back to my project again. Oh dear. Well, I really don't know what's happened there. I do beg your pardon. I just seem to have had a complete freeze up of the system. I don't know what I've done there that's caused that to happen. I'm just going to have to close Aerotrac out for a moment. I'm sorry, that's obviously not what we want to be doing in our sessions, but there we go. I'll quit out the administration. We'll just reload all that again. Excuse me one moment while I just come back into Aerotrac. Obviously something there it didn't like. This is, by the way, a beta version of Aerotrac. I'm working on the very latest version of the software, so I suspect that possibly I've hit something there which it wasn't anticipating. But hopefully, if I just go back and be a little bit more careful about what I click and what I press. Right, so we've got scheduled maintenance, we've got components, we've got all the unscheduled defects that we raised against it. But specifically, I think the bit I was going to try and point out really was that, like, the project status information. So there's a huge amount of information that you can get through the project status screen. You can see all the material requirements. You can see all the individual ops, so within a number of hours that have been booked to it. You can see there are link throughs to all sorts of things. We can see there's a project estimate and a project invoice. We've got, for some reason, 2 material reviews against that project. I don't know why that would be. 2 separate picking lists, so not a massive number, but obviously all of these things, if you just double click on it, it will take you through to those various different tasks. From a materials perspective, obviously all the demands against a project are all kind of reflected here, including the top level project and any lower level sub projects if they're all in there as well. It's not just material demands as in replacement parts. You can see all the rework against here as well. There's a separate labour tab where we can see all the time booking. We can see who booked to what. So, for example, in that particular task where it's gone red, we've overbooked. So Bill overbooked on that job. It was well, actually, we didn't have any estimated time against it, so that was always going to happen, really. But yeah, wherever we've got sort of overbooking, so here we go. We estimated 1 hour and 15 minutes, and he actually took a minute over, so we could probably go and talk to James and find out what happened there. Bit harsh, though, I think, in that case. So yeah, there's a huge amount of visibility here in terms of who's booked what. We can see the sort of the various pluses and minuses down at the bottom. I'm not sure if there's a total at the end of it, but obviously that will be reflected in some of the turn time reports as well. We can also reference some of the tooling. So unfortunately, I didn't have any tools, but basically, if you've got tools linked to the task card, they'll automatically import into here as being the tooling that's required. And then you can track all the tooling that was actually physically issued to the project, and also just make sure that everything actually has all been returned and booked back in afterwards. So we can see that something has been booked out and then whether or not it's been returned. There's a big project diary as well not that big in this particular instance. But yeah, the idea basically is obviously you can go in and you record all sorts of information. So some of this is stuff that maybe relates to conversations that are going on with the customer. So if you find a particularly nasty defect, you'll report it to him, tell him what the costs are. He comes back and approves it. But obviously that's all updated through the project estimate. But obviously, if he's written that in an email somewhere, you can copy and paste that in, and you've got a record that everybody can see and everybody can share with to see what's going on in relation to that particular project. Okay, so yeah, there's our project. If I just go back to the project technical details again for the projects I just raised. If we go through to the project status, so whenever you create a project within Aerotrac, it automatically does one thing in particular. It creates an inspection report, which you can access through the inspection workbench. And basically, this is the line side reporting tool for the engineers, for them to basically be able to update the job, to request parts, to remove components. So there's a whole series of different processes that they can do. So on the schedule tab, they can see all the individual task cards. If they want to look at the detail of that particular card, they can just double click on it and it will take them through to the AMS or to the individual task card or to the publication or whatever it is that they're looking at. They can filter by the various different types, so they might just want to look at the task cards, or they might be looking at just the cards that are linked to the grouped inspection. And obviously there's an option on all these things. Again, if I just go back to the project we were talking about earlier, 210, you can see in here the details of how all those task cards have been actioned and inspected. So I was a bit lazy here and I signed all the cards off at exactly the same time. But yeah, obviously, this is a very simple way of actually seeing what the progress is of the project on a line by line basis. You know, as you're going through it, you can just literally click it and just see which tasks. If we click at the top in the status bar, it'll separate those that are actioned to those that are not, and that just gives you a very simple, clear indication of what you still need to work on. From a component life limited parts point of view, any component changes obviously will be in here. I think these are all linked to scheduled component changes, but obviously we'll try and do an unscheduled one in a moment. So other equipment is additional equipment, and obviously all the defects were all added through here. So this is probably the most common thing. This is basically where the engineers can go in, add the defects, create a task card. They can also request any materials, so any replacement parts that are linked to that. You can make the task card mandatory. Obviously, these were scheduled removals because you can see the op number, but most of the rest will all just be linked to those individual unscheduled defects, which obviously have a different op number range. They all go from 5,000 and above. You can also rework components, so you don't have to replace everything if you've got in-house capability. So, for example, you want to send this battery for a cap check, you can simply, as long as you've got capability set up for it, you can actually generate the project from the inspection workbench. So actually, you can create the project from here, create all the route and everything else for that battery, and then actually just send it with the route and all the project details to the battery shop for them to carry out. And similar thing, you've got the visibility of the marshalling tab. You can see the tooling that's required. You can add additional tooling now as well. So if there's an extra piece of tooling that you need because we're doing an unscheduled op, and as a result of that we need additional tooling, you can request it through here on the inspection workbench. So all that information obviously is ploughed into here. Excuse me. And as the project goes through, the idea clearly is that if I go back to my existing project, excuse me, go right back up to the top. So in here, I can update the progress as I'm going along. So there's an opportunity here for the guys to go in and for that group's inspection, for them to be able to pop in here, flag up and say, yes, I've actioned that. I can put whatever information out, so carried out in accordance with AMM, whatever, with the issue and revision numbers on it. Obviously, you can pull some of that from the notes library if you prefer, so you don't need to type it, you just put it in. Who did it, who signed it off. So it was Bernard that signed it off. Click OK, and that's it. So as I say, very simple to be able to update all of that. And that obviously is basically that when they're updating that information through here, what they're actually accessing is the project update screen. And essentially this is the screen where the 145 do effectively their sign off, if you like, of the job. So if I go to the scheduled maintenance tab here, you'll see basically it's that same screen. If I edit it and then I go and update, you'll see there you go, there's the same details that obviously I just typed in. But at this point we can say what the tech log page was, at which that was carried out, all that kind of good stuff really. And you can just simply flick through and do each one. So actually it's looking for a sector record page. Obviously you can choose different sector record pages, but ideally what you do is you probably go through the life details and set it up in there to say, yeah, these are actually the life details of that particular project. Excuse me, I've got something open down there, which probably just need to close that out. Okay, cancel that. There we go. That might be the problem actually last time. I think that's where it got. Yeah, I think I might have inadvertently opened up that card and then minimized it down in the corner. There we go. So yeah, yeah, we can update, and so the project updates is obviously a key part of the process of updating it. There are in certain circumstances, the 145 can update the status of the aircraft, but also you can have it set it so actually all you're just doing is just saying this is when we've completed the task, and only the camo can actually update the true maintenance status of the aircraft. So there are system options that basically determine how that works. Just exit out of there, and I'll just go back again. And just pick up Hangar Project 210. So yeah, I mean, looking at this particular one with all the details in here, we've got a status report, which obviously we can print off, and you can send this off at regular intervals. If you were doing this for a third-party camo, you could print off this compliance statement to say these are all the tasks that we've booked so far. Yeah, those that are actioned, those that are not. So it's a simple way of being able to go back and tell the customer this is the current status of it. And obviously, once the thing is tech records complete, you can then go off and produce the CRS. So this obviously can be as simplistic or as complicated as you want it to be. So you can either just have it flagging up and saying it's got the phase 12 has been carried out, or actually you can go off and show all the individual tasks. Actually, this is massive, so I don't know why I just did that, because this will probably take quite a while to run. But yeah, so the CRS, it will get there. There we go. Sorry, it was a big old job, this particular one, and I cheated because I just closed everything down at exactly the same time using the update all feature. Which is handy really, because at the end of the day, if you're doing that as a return to service on some of the calendar-based events, it's probably quite handy really. It will get there. Sorry, a bit slow. Actually, I'll use this opportunity to take a quick drink. There we go. I hope that was worth the wait for all 29 pages of a CRS. So you probably wouldn't have one quite as complicated as that, I'm guessing, but there we go. Right, okay. So I've kind of gone through the scenario where you can create a project for a managed aircraft. I'll do the same thing again, basically, but for a non-managed aircraft. So once again, if we go to MRO quotations, add a quote, we're going to do a hangar, but this time only for a maintained only aircraft. It's going to pick up the aircraft from my for fleet details. Got a request for quote from the customer that goes into here. Got a work scope details. So obviously we're doing some scheduled maintenance for the job. And there's a couple of different options here. So what Aerotrac does is it uses the task cards, be they Part M task cards or Part 145 only task cards, and uses the product group basically to suck them in. So it knows what the aircraft product group is, and as a result of that, it then just goes in and allows you to just go in and quite literally just tick boxes and say, right, I'm doing this, 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 and this. So effectively, you're building the job kind of on the fly. So I'm actually going to cancel that now, and we're just going to do that again, because I'll show you there is another way. Obviously, if you've got hundreds of tasks that you're going to carry out, that's probably maybe not the best way of doing it. So there is another simpler way of being able to do this fairly quickly, which is that if you pick your aircraft, do the same thing again. So it's an RFQ, work scope detail is scheduled maintenance, and go scheduled maintenance. And now on the labour charges tab, if you have a spreadsheet that simply tells you these are all the tasks that we need to incorporate, and basically what you're looking for are the task references, then what you can do is you can actually import them using an Excel file. So if I go to demo materials, MRO quotations, and I just choose that one there, it's a very, very simple Excel table with task number written at the top. and then basically the unique doc reference that relates to that specific task in the column beneath it. And what Aerotrac will then do is it will go look at that. It will look at the library of task cards that you've got, which we'll look at in a second, and basically pull them all in. So it's imported all the rows successfully. It will also add to the list anything that you don't have a task card for. So it won't just reject things, it will pull them in. And the plan is that in this instance, it's actually a panel removal thing. But if I double click on that, what it'll do is it'll actually take me through to this miscellaneous card setup section here. And so effectively what it allows you to do is it allows you to create the card on the fly. So I can put in, this would put in the doc reference, so I can go in and I can then just basically build the card. So if it doesn't exist in the library, I don't have to come out and go off and go and create it. I can just literally do it on the fly from here. While I'm in here, I'm just going to quickly go through. So just so you know where this is, this basically is down right at the bottom of MRO in this MISC cards setup section here. And basically the MISC card is purely for the 145. And there's a couple of things I just kind of want to point out to you while we're in here. So I'll just cancel that. So the MISC card setup basically is, they are the domain of the 145 rather than camo. And the idea here is that, well, one of the things you can do, which you may or may not be aware of, is that you have the ability to actually go in and edit the content of the camo controlled task cards. But what you can't do is overwrite anything that may affect the continuing airworthiness of the aircraft. So it doesn't affect any of the camo element, but it does let you put whatever content you wish to put in against the card. So for example, if I was to pick just a particular card here, you'll see that I have the ability in here to go in, edit the document. I don't have to do any of the annoying unapproving of the card. I can, in fact, the approval of the card isn't even visible. I can't change any of the hours. I can't change any of the product group application. I can't even change any of the content in the task or the task note, but I can change the content in the engineering note. I can add panels. I can add zones. I can add tooling. I can add parts. I can't add pubs. I don't think it won't let you do that because that's part of the camo function. And I can also just change the hours. So there's very much now the ability for the part 145 to be able to pick up on the cards that the camo created, add your own content in the engineering note. So anything specific that you want to put in relation to the job, you can put into there. And then on top of that, you can change the hours, you can add parts, you can do whatever. The other thing that the miscellaneous cards do, and I'll quickly go through all the different types. Components, basically components are largely just about you being able to process component changes. So yeah, I mean, this isn't a particularly brilliant example, but basically you can build detailed task cards so that when you're changing a particular component, rather than there just being a simple on-off task card, you can actually have a very detailed task card that says this is how we accomplish a engine removal and refit. So yeah, very detailed task cards, entirely up to you. And all you need to do is set up the card. Again, nothing to do with camo. Camo just simply say, okay, we're changing that particular component. And instead of, when you go to print the pack, instead of the simple on-off card, you get this detail card that says, there is an on-off card, but there's also a detailed set of instructions behind it as to how you do that. The same is applicable for modifications. So if you're carrying out a mod, how do we do it? And for publication. So if there's the accomplishment of a fairly complex service bulletin, same again, you can get a detailed task card that explains this is how we do it. You can set up unscheduled cards. So very common defects, you can set them up with a set number of hours, with a set procedure as to how what you need to follow. So there could be troubleshooting or whatever, which is part and parcel of that unscheduled task card there. So just recently we've introduced supplementary cards. So in this case, for example, we've got one here for just the removal of seats. So this is literally going to create a lot number that will remove all the passenger seats and allow you to refit them afterwards, basically, which would be linked to one of the scheduled tasks. So it's a supplementary task card, and obviously it allows you to book time to it. You might actually spend more time removing the seats than you would actually carrying out the inspections. So obviously it's important to have something to be able to book to, and that's what the supplementary cards are all about. Okay. So in terms of my MRO quote, I've got a whole bunch of tasks. These tasks I've decided I don't want, so I'm just going to highlight those and then just delete them. So they're gone. I can save that. And again, if we've got anything on here that's linked to the task up from a materials point of view, they'll pop in there. I can also do component removals. So if I edit the quote and we know that the customer needs to change a particular component, so they're going to change a I don't know, a 30134111. I don't know why they'd be changing one of them, but they can. And I can go into here, say what the serial number is. So obviously they need to give me the log card details. So 6T666, and whatever the serial number is. So I don't know, or the life of it is. Maybe you know that, maybe you don't. But we're going to say that we're going to replace that part as well. So that's obviously going to be a part of the process. That should automatically add it into the parts list. Should do. I might just save it first, to be fair. Replace the part. Oh, entry type. So this would be related to the engine, engine number 1. If I save that, yep. Oh, sorry, I know what I didn't do. Beg your pardon. Edit. Got to tick that box there. If you tick that box there, that should add it to the parts list as well. There we go. So yeah, this is all part and parcel of the quote. That's a nice price part. So yeah, off we go, and away we go with our MRO quotations. So we can do the same thing, complete the quote. Yes, we can convert that to a planned arrival, or in this case, I'm just going to convert it straight to a project. You sure you want to do that? Yes, it's a base project. Aircraft out of service, so it's going to go today. When did they want it finished by? Well, they want it back by the end of the month. Scheduled maintenance, project title, so phase 1 inspection. Save that. Generates me my hangar project with all the details in it, and then over on the technical details side of things, yet again, we have a project all built with all the scheduled maintenance tasks. So once again, I just need to go in here. I can pick a maintenance control number. So if I've got it set up with the appropriate maintenance release, I can select which engineer it is who's managing it. Save that. Yeah. So that's my technical details. And on the scheduled maintenance tasks, I simply need to generate the route. There's my components. So preview the op number there. So here's my classic on-off task card. Print the pack in the normal way. Creates an inspection report. So within the inspection report, obviously, I've got the ability to add defects. So I can go into here, edit that, add a generic task, 27-20. So I don't know, probably just what's the related op number. So we're having a look at the whatever that is. We can go into here, put it in there. So yes, a defect. We can type in what the action is. So elevator trim is stiff, for example. Report that as a defect. Select a defect code. So I'm not sure what that is. Maybe failure. Put a comment, investigate. And then one of the things Aerotrac will make you do, depending on how you've got it set up from a system options point of view, is you've got to put in a time. So I actually have to go in here, and that's because I've got a certain system option set that says that the customer needs to approve all the defects. So we've got a customer approval required here. So that's going to take me maybe 5 hours to investigate that to begin with, and I'll save that. Do you wish to generate the op number and print the paperwork now? Yeah, so that's obviously going to generate an op number. So I've got a 5001 series op number for that. And away we go. So I'm very quickly going to drop back to the other project, actually, HP 220, and also just show you one of the things as well that obviously we've changed probably in some of the more recent versions, particularly in relation to defects that relate to component removals. Particularly life limited components. So if I go in here and I add a new generic task, what we're doing. Let's just do, I don't know, I'll just pick something 27 again for argument's sake. May have nothing to do with that at all, actually. No, I think it was 37 I was doing. Something like that. Whatever. What's my ARP number? That one there. And so again, we found a defect. And as part of the inspection of the heat exchanger, we found a filter clogged. Checked. Fan and shaft is making metal. So comment is remove shaft. So I'm going to set that. I'm going to put a certain number of hours. So it's going to take me probably 10 hours to change that thing there. If I save that, yes. Do wish to generate ops and put the paperwork now? Yes. So I'm sure those of you who've used Aerotrac in the past and in the dim and distant past, you'll probably remember that what you would need to do if you were doing a component change, you create a separate op. But obviously the idea now is that you can link all of them together. So if I go to my defect, which has now got on 5001 against it, and say I want to remove a life limiter component, I can go in here, put a part number in, 2226. M21. Obviously, it recognises that part number. It recognises obviously the serial number. So it's obviously pulling this information directly from the config activity. So replace shaft. Fault code. You can put a fault code in. So there's default reporting and then there's fault reporting, if you like, which is you might be having to make this change not because of a defect, but because actually we've done something wrong. So you've got two levels, if you like, of reporting in relation to that. So in this case, I'm just going to pick NA because there's no specific fault. It's just a defect. Click OK. I'm just going to save that. Yep. Update the route. And basically, yeah. So that's essentially now what we've got is that the component removal is linked now to the task card, to the unscheduled defect. So two operations, but basically one thing. Same process in terms of clearing them off. You can go in and you can edit the details. You can update it. You can update and say component sign off. I've actioned it. Where did I get it from? You can just flag it at this point. It's being removed. But that was kind of really the point of this, was just to show you that you don't have to remove the component. One of the restrictions that Aerotrac used to have was that you couldn't book that part into stock and then maybe send it away and get it looked at or whatever. So it actually kind of, and that was because of the camo impact on Aerotrac. The component couldn't be both on the aircraft and in stores. But now, as long as you have an op created or a maintenance instruction created that says we're removing that component, actually not a maintenance instruction, an op, there needs to be an op in place that says we're removing that component. What it will actually then allow you to do is it will allow you to go from a materials perspective and book that part in and send it away and get something done with it. So yeah, from a stock movements, part movements point of view, I can actually go in now, new, do my component removal, pick up my project, HP 10220, add a part. Obviously, it identifies whatever it is that basically you've got a removal for, say where you're going to put it. So I'm going to stick that into quarantine for the minute before I send it away. And it's in an unserviceable condition. I mean, you might be ending this off on warranty or whatever. Release type, well, there isn't one because it's an unserviceable part. But obviously, it's picking up the details. That will pull into the component log, all the usual thing. But as I say, the primary thing now is, even though it's still technically on the aircraft, so if I look at it from a part number, serial number, trace point of view, you'll see that I've got transactions, both of this as it being on the aircraft, but now also in stock. So it will let you do that. And obviously that threw a few people into a bit of confusion to begin with, but yeah, I mean, obviously it's designed to do that, because really what we wanted to do was free up the 145 from the camo. Very quickly, kind of a last thing really is just a very, very quick look at the AWI. So this is some of the stuff that we're actually kind of building on going forward. So if I scoot away now and have a quick look at this. So I'll probably need to just go back in again. If I try and select this, it will probably say I can't because I need to log on again. Oh no, there we go. So basically, what is the AWI? The AWI is some of it is Aerotrac, if you like. So the thing with AWI at the moment is it doesn't replace Aerotrac version 250. It simply uses the data that's in 250 to populate information. We've been doing an awful lot of work on the aircraft management side of things, which in itself actually is probably quite useful from a 145 perspective. So, for example, you can see the status of the fleet, which you would probably be interested in. You can see what we're talking fleet forecast. So, yeah, this is a simple planner. Basically, it just says what aircraft is coming in and for what. So obviously that would probably be as much of interest to you as it would be from a planning perspective. And it really is about planning that we've been focusing in relation to the 145 and particularly on the aircraft side. So one of the things you can do is you can start to build a plan for the business, if you like, particularly in relation to people, manpower, for want of a better phrase, if you like, how you plan your people resources, if you like. So one of the things you can do is you can actually plan the space. So you can set up all the different bays in the hangar. We've got this kind of like algorithm thing that works out, when you do a job, particularly a scheduled maintenance job, which might be in for a month or so, the workflow tends to be that there's a huge amount of work and activity that goes in at the beginning when you're doing all the basic inspections. Then things tail off a bit because obviously there's defects that need clearing and you're waiting for parts. So the activity tends to kind of die down and plateau for a while until you get towards the end when the parts start to arrive, and then activity picks up again. So Aerotrac picks that up and kind of reflects, or the AWI rather, picks up on that, reflects that in terms of the capacity planning side of things. And then basically what Aerotrac allows you to do is create a hangar plan. So which it can break down by warehouse, it can break down by the various different departments. Apologies if it's taking a little time to load. But yeah, you'll see we've got the details in here. I mentioned before about the importance of planned arrivals. And really, I mean, the data is not fantastic at the moment. We'll probably be doing or planning a proper session on the whole of the AWI at some point in the very near future. But the idea is in here, you'll be able to put all your hangar projects, but also you can plug in your planned arrivals. With the idea basically that you can move things around. And what Aerotrac will do is it will look at the hours against the job, and it'll look at the hours against any planned arrivals, and then it actually looks at the hours that the guys, what physically is available to you on the shop floor. And at the moment, everything's looking tickety-boo because it's all green. As soon as it goes red, basically that means you've got a bit of a problem, really, because you don't have sufficient manpower to be able to do all the work that basically is being planned for that day. So very simplistic, it allows you maybe to take these planned arrivals and shift them out by 24 hours. And maybe that would just loosen things up. Obviously, the idea is that we can track who's licensed, who's not, what's posted against it. We've got an efficiency coefficient in there, so it's only working on the fact that people are maybe only 70%, so 30% of the time they're doing non-productive tasks. So all that kind of stuff. There's some separate document management features as well now. So as we're building towards electronic sign-off, the idea would be actually that the guys use a separate mobile application. I would show you that, but unfortunately, we need to set up all the two-factor authentication, all that sort of stuff. So you can do it by email, do it on your phone. But basically, the idea is that individual engineers can be assigned a tablet application that they then log into, so they've got their own login, two-level factor authentication, as well as a PIN number, and you can sign off tasks. So basically, the Aerotrac mobile application, to all intents and purposes, replaces two things, really, the inspection workbench and time clock. It also lets you reference all your manuals online. It allows you to take photos of defects. It allows you to create defects on the fly. It allows you to roam, so you don't have to be in the hangar. You could be sent out on a job on the M25 somewhere, and for an aircraft that's gone tech by the motorway, and create the defects and rectify stuff. And what Aerotrac does is when you get back and it links up, it will catch up and basically update Aerotrac. So yeah, there's a whole pile of stuff that we're working on at the moment. That's it. So I've just about squeezed in time. Thanks ever so much, everybody, for joining. I hope that was helpful, useful. Please, if you have any other sort of more detailed queries or questions in relation to how stuff works, please drop us a line. Best to do it through a support log, really. But yeah, for sure, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have on existing functionality or anything else that you might want to query. So all that remains is to thank you, everybody, for attending today. Go back to my slideshow from current slide. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Look at that. I know what I'm doing now. So yeah, thank you for attending. Yeah, please. I mean, I have to do this, but yeah, be really, really grateful if you could possibly just sort of give us some feedback on these sessions. Hopefully you'll find them useful. Yeah, and thank you again for coming in. Really hope to speak with all of you again soon. We're back again next week. I can't remember exactly what the subject matter is. All I know is I'm not doing it. But thanks everybody once again, and have a good day.